JMath.
Welcome to the second type of triangle sums, where we now actually need to write everything in terms of variables. In this case, they say cos 18 is equal to m. So all of my answers is going to have to do something with an m. So let's just look at the steps and then answer this question. Step 1, draw the triangle. I'm looking at the 18 degrees, so that's definitely in quadrant 1, between 0 and 90. So I can draw the triangle already, and I can put the 18 degrees there. I know that's a 90. And they're telling me cos is equal to m. So I know m, I can rewrite as m over 1, and cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. Now, if I go and do the Pythagoras, I'm going to see, okay, so opposite squared, so I'm just going to do a y. Y squared is equal to hypotenuse squared minus adjacent squared. So in this case, m squared. And now I can just say that is the square root of 1 minus m squared. Why did the square with the 1 cancel? It didn't really cancel. It's just 1 squared is just 1. So many people think it's because of the square root. It's really not the case. So just memorize that answer. You're going to see it a lot. So this side is 1 minus m squared. So please show the Pythagoras, just to save space. I'm just going to take it away for now. So now I've completed the triangle. I've done Pythagoras. I can now go and answer all the questions. So in every sum, I need to get the answer to something with an 18. It doesn't need to be cos 18, but as long as there's an 18, I can use this triangle. So let's see. The first one, sine 108. So you have two options in this case. You can either say it's 180 minus 72, or you can see it's 90 plus 18. So in this case, the cofunction is going to be much easier. So I can rewrite that as sine 90 plus 18, which would just change into cos 18. And then in my triangle, and with where they started me with this question, I can just see, okay, the answer is just m. Okay, question B, sine of negative 18. So I'm just going to use reduction formulas, and I know sine of a negative angle would just mean the minus goes to the front because it's in the fourth quadrant, so this is minus sine 18. I can now use the triangle and say, okay, but sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So the answer to this question is then just minus opposite, which is the square root of 1 minus m squared. And that is my final answer. Okay, question C. That angle is way too big, so I can subtract 360 from that immediately, and then I need to still rewrite it in terms of 18. So if I subtract 360, I get that this is now tan 162. But 162 is the same as 180 minus 18. And therefore, this is just negative tan 18. And that tells me the answer would then just be opposite over adjacent. So minus the square root of 1 minus m squared over adjacent, which is m. Question D. So now we're getting into the grade 12 math. How does 36 relate to 18? So very easy, it is double. So I can rewrite that as cos 2 times 18, and then I can just choose any one of the three formulas to work with. So if I see this as cos 2 times 18, the easiest one would be the one where I avoid the square root. So the square root is in my opposite side. So tan and sine has an opposite in their ratios. So I'm going to use the cos option because then I just have to use the m value. So this is 2 cos squared 18 minus 1, and I know cos 18 was just m. So the answer is 2m squared minus 1. That's it. Question E. So in this case, again, I need to get this to something with an 18. That looks very far away from 18. But I'm going to just reduce with the quadrant. So I can see that's in quadrant 2. So it would be sine 180 minus, okay, and it would be a 36. Okay, great. So that now leads me to 36. And again, I now know that is double. So I can go and rewrite this as 2 sine 18 cos 18. Now I can use the triangle. So this would be 2 square root of 1 minus m squared. I can write that over 1, but it's really not necessary. And then this is times m over 1. But you really don't need to write it as fractions because it's just the 1. So the final answer would just be that. Perfect. Okay, so now F. Now we get to a bit trickier sums. Okay, so I'm just going to have to write really small with this. So how does 18 connect to a 12? This is really one of your more difficult examples. It's not double, it's not half, I can't reduce, it feels like I can't do anything. But then please remember special angles. So 30, 45, and 60. So now what does that mean? So that means I'm going to go for compounds. If the answer needs to be 12, okay, so what I'm going to look at is what happens if I plus 18, the triangle's value, to the question that they give me. So 12 minus 18, it's going to give me negative, so that doesn't work. But 12 plus 18 gives me a 30. And that means I can use compound angles. So I'm going to rewrite this as 30 minus 18. Remember, the answer for the bracket needs to be a 12. Now I can actually use compound angles. So I can rewrite this as cos 30 cos 18. This is the cos rule, so the sign must change. And then sine 30 sine 18. So now all the 30s are special angles. I can just change them. So that's root 3 over 2. Cos 18 we saw was just m plus a half, and then square root of 1 minus m squared. So you can just leave the final answer there, and I can see that LCD is 2, so that would be root 3m plus the square root of 1 minus m squared. So I would consider that as a complicated question for these type of sums. So now the sums just get really mean. So what on earth is that they give me? I now need to connect that to 18. Okay, so I know 9 is a half of 18, but then where does the rest come from? So now we get to those parts where they say, okay, but I can then just add anything I want as long as I take it away. So that looks very familiar if I look at the double angle formulas. So if I say this sum, I can just change to 2 cos squared 9, and then I add a minus 1 because now it's my double angle. But because I added something, I need to take it away immediately. So I actually added -1, and to cancel that, I need to put a +1. So now I can say this is just cos 18 plus 1, and the answer to the question is then just m plus 1. So sometimes in math, you need to add something that is not there. So I'm going to start this one in a different way. I'm going to say cos 18 is just 2 times 9, and I know this is equal to m. But I can then rewrite this with one of the cos options, and one of the cos options is 1 minus 2 sine squared. And now I see if this is a double angle, I'm working with 9. And I'm going to keep this as an equation, so I'm just going to leave the m there. And now I can move everything away until I have that answer. So I'm going to minus 1 on the other side, so this is minus 2 sine squared 9 equals m minus 1. Then I'm going to divide by -2, and then I actually have what they are asking me. So then this answer would just be m minus 1 over -2. And now for question I, they just want sine of 9. Now I can start again with the 18 and all of that, but if they led you through the questions, and if you got question H correct, I can actually start from that point. So I already proved that sine squared of 9 is equal to m minus 1 over -2, and therefore I just need to square root both sides. So this is actually a very easy question if they asked you the previous ones already. So the answer to this question is then this m minus 1 over -2, the square root of that. Okay, guys, so half of these were really easy, but I think after F, it became very complicated. So make sure you practice a lot of these. I'll put a practice video on, so yeah, that they don't catch you out in exams. Let's look at more examples. For the second example, if sine 9 equals m, write sine 18 in terms of m. So first thing, I am going to just do a small triangle. I know it's quadrant 1 because it's just 9 degrees. So I'm just going to go there. Then sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So opposite would be m, hypotenuse would be 1. So now if I Pythagoras, I'm just going to have x squared is equal to hypotenuse squared minus opposite squared, and therefore x is just equal to 1 minus m squared. Now some teachers want you to write pith next to it, otherwise they subtract the marks, so please just do that. And now I can complete the triangle, 1 minus m squared. Now if I start this question, my triangle is the single angle, I forgot my 9 there, and they are asking me for a double angle. So this is the easier version. So I can immediately start by just saying, okay, but sine 18, I can just rewrite it as 2 sine 9 cos 9. And then I can just use the triangle. So I know that sine 9 was just m, and that cos 9 is then adjacent over hypotenuse. So 1 minus m squared. I can put the over 1, but it's really not necessary. That is the answer. So it's actually a very easy question if you understand what they're looking for. The last example here, so cos 55 is equal to k. Again, that's first quadrant, so I'm just going to do a small triangle. Adjacent over hypotenuse, and then the opposite would now, I hope you now know this format already, but I just need to show them why it's that. So y squared is equal to hypotenuse squared minus adjacent squared, and it's all square rooted. There we go, and I got that by using Pythagoras. Now I need to use cos 5 and cos 55, and I need to link those two in some way. Now, if you're sharp, you're going to see if I put them together, I get a 60, and that's then exactly what I'm going to do. But remember, I need to write my bracket so that the answer is 5, and I'm going to write it like this. So I'm going to say this is cos 60 minus 55. So if you struggle with these, just always remember, if you ask yourself, what is the answer of the bracket? What's the actual value? It must be the question that they asked you. They asked me write cos 5 in terms of k. So I can't use the 5 in the bracket. The answer must be 5. Now I can just go and say this is the cos rule. So it's cos 60, cos 55. Because it is the cos rule, or the cos compound, it must change to a plus, and then sine 60 and sine 55. Okay, so now in my bracket, this was the 55-degree bracket, so I can now just use that and special angle. So cos 60 is just a half, but cos 55 would be k, sine 60 would be root 3 over 2, and then sine 55 would be that root there, 1 minus k squared. I can just, for the final answer, then just LCD. This is going to be a 2, so it's k plus root 3 root 1 minus k squared. Okay, so that is all the types of triangle sums, that draw a sketch without a calculator types of sums. Some of them do really get tricky. So please focus on this. It is in every single exam. You'll only get one, but it can count I would say between 5 and 10 marks for all of the variations.
If this video helped you, please like and subscribe.
JMath.